it goes again. I'll just put this by it, maybe.
Okay. Anita, was that your name?
Arnita.
Arnita.
Yeah, Arnita.
Okay. Arnita, everyone else here in Harvey County, let me say this. Get ready to be paid attention to. Because I am here today, I'll be back again, but being from a rural area myself, I recognize how important your area is, and I recognize how important the work is that you all are doing here day in and day out. So thank you all for what you do. Again, my name is Senator Cindy Holscher. I am so pleased to be here and so pleased to bear witness to a large group of Democrats here, and again, all the work that you are doing. I will tell you, I'm a little bit jealous that Gina brought one of her children along. I have 3 kiddos as well, and my oldest daughter, Sarah, often accompanies me on road trips. And I asked her last night, I said, "Are you up for going to Newton?" And she looked at me and she's like, "Do I have to remind you about what happened 2 years ago?" What happened 2 years ago is she was doing an internship in Coffeyville, and so I road tripped with her a couple different times when she went back to Coffeyville. And one of those weekends I was driving, and I start to get a little distracted, I will say, at times. So I'm pointing out to her, certain animals out in fields and different types of tractors, or I'm telling her stories about detasseling corn in the summer, or I saw some of those barns with those quilts on the side. I was explaining the significance of that to her, and all of a sudden she says to me, "Mom, I'm enjoying the farm talk and all your stories from your childhood, but could you please drive over 45? So since then, she has not been quite as anxious to get in the car with me, because I never get to the place on time in terms of what GPS says we'll get there, because again, I've got to look at the scenery and I've got to see what's going on. But I am very, very glad to be here. There's some interesting things that are happening in Kansas. Locally, you will see that while the legislative session is over for the year, there has been this tendency for legislators not to really spend a lot of time in their communities talking to people. Likewise, as was mentioned earlier by Gina, our Senator Roger Marshall did a town hall, but when he didn't like the questions, he accused us, citizens, of being paid agitators. And then he left early. But I'm here to answer your questions. I won't leave early, and like you all, I'm a real Kansan. I'll give you a little bit of background about myself. I grew up on a farm in mid-Missouri. Please do not hold that against me. I had no input on that part whatsoever, but I was born in mid-Missouri. I'm the daughter of a Marine who was also a construction worker. My mom was the janitor at the grade school that I attended. I'm the first generation college student, my brother and I. My oldest brother went into the Army. My other brother and I both went to college. Came to Kansas actually in 1999. I was working for Sprint and actually came out to a lot of different territories across Kansas. I think actually was with United Telephone at that point, and then became Sprint. Of course, we loved the communities in Kansas, the great schools, so we decided this was where we wanted to be, where we wanted to start our family. As luck would have it, once our kids got into school, the Brownback experiment was in full swing, and we were seeing devastating cuts made to our schools. We were losing teachers. We didn't have janitors or paras. Some of our schoolrooms didn't even have doors. We had shower curtains. I mean, we were hemorrhaging. And then, about that time, my oldest daughter Sarah and I, it was on a weekend, and we had gone to Target. And we saw one of her teachers working there. And she looked at me and she said, "Why is my teacher working at Target on the weekend when she works all week at school? She has a family, and I know she's busy." And I told her that we were in a crisis at that point. And I told her, I said, "My guess is she probably doesn't make enough money to pay the bills." And she looked at me and she said, "You go fix that." And I will tell you, in that moment in Target, with my then 12 or 13-year-old telling me to go fix it, I did start thinking about it and thinking about the fact that a lot of things were going wrong at that point. A lot of very negative things were happening. And I had the realization that it was going to take reasonable, good people stepping forward to fix it. So I decided to run for the House. As it was, my own representative at that point in Johnson County was the person leading the charge to defund our public schools. So took her on, we worked our tails off and ended up winning every single precinct as a Democrat in a red area. And I ended up spending 2 terms in the House.
Here you go, bye. Thanks.
In 2020, I crossed over to the Senate. There was a gentleman by the name of Jim Denning who was our senator. He was the person standing in the way of Medicaid expansion. So at that point, decided to cross over to the Senate. While we got the way, sadly, some other spots across the state got more extreme, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a little bit. I want to tell you a little bit about how the legislature has evolved over the past 8 years, and a lot has happened, and it is very concerning. When I was first elected to the House, there was a large number of moderate Republicans and Democrats. We all worked together. I was a co-founder of the Women's Bipartisan Caucus. We worked together and collaborated, and we ended the Brownback experiment. We also went forward and passed Medicaid expansion in the House. Well, and then it passed in the Senate too, but Brownback vetoed it. But we passed a lot of great legislation. We got the schools back to being funded. We got the state back basically on the road of financial stability. But I will tell you, there's a lot of different factions within the legislature. And while Brownback was gone, a lot of his allies were still there. And they did not like what we had done. And so from that point, for my first term in the House, they have been focused on building back up their ranks. So what we have seen is that each election cycle, they have worked to purge Democrats as well as the moderates. And each election cycle, dark money through the Koch network and other areas have poured in. And in that time period, we have lost Democrats and almost every single moderate Republican. There is now a supermajority of very extreme legislators in Topeka. With that, we have seen the increase of introduction of bills that are voucher plans, which are meant to destroy your public schools. Additionally, we keep seeing the pushing of a flat tax, which is marketed as being simple and easy for us. But really what it is, it's a regressive tax structure. It puts the burden on lower income and gives the brakes to upper income. And again, every year we keep seeing this push on those main topics of the far right. I knew going into this session after the 2024 elections that victories were going to be hard to come by just because of the numbers. It's an extremely shortened session, and my focus became on protecting our schools. Again, those voucher programs, they're marketed as a way to help kids get from one school that maybe is struggling to a better school. But what they don't tell you is that out of 105 counties, 60 of them have no other choices. Additionally, what they don't tell you is that the voucher that they give to you won't pay the entire tuition. And in addition to that, most of the good private schools are full. And if your kiddo has an IEP, they're not getting in. And every state that has expanded a massive voucher program similar to what's being pushed in Kansas, in every state, 70% of the vouchers go to families making over 6 figures. It's not helping struggling families or people in struggling schools. It is a total transfer of wealth. And if you think about it, for rural areas, it's taking money from your schools and sending it to Johnson County and Sedgwick to people who are already, again, pretty well off sending their kids to private schools. So that's what the scam is. And I do call it a scam because, again, it's labeled as helping struggling kids. but that's not who it goes to. So that was my goal this year going into this session, to stop voucher bills. It was myself and another very small group, because we are very much outnumbered. We have some protection with the governor's veto, but again, with the supermajority, anything can happen. But we've reached out to rural areas, we've reached out to legislators, we've reached out to voters in rural areas, as well as just across the state. And I'm very happy to report to you that we stopped every single voucher bill this session.
Woo!
Interestingly, if you look at the state level, there's a lot of parallels to the federal level. Federal level has a DOJ committee. State level has a COJ committee. Both say the intent is to focus on waste, fraud, and find inefficiencies. But I will tell you what it has become is more of a way of attacking the agencies that serve the people and eliminating critical jobs. Again, attacks on public education from the federal as well as the state level, and we're seeing massive attacks on voting rights. You all probably heard we have now lost the 3-day grace period for mail-in ballots. Kansas now has the shortest time frame for mail ballots in the nation. If you look forward, 2026 is going to be so important. I feel like I've said it before. The 2026 election is the most critical in our lives, and it does feel that way. Democracy's hanging in the balance on the federal level, and on the state level, so many of the things that we have worked to protect are just hanging there because of that supermajority. We'll have the governor's race on the ballot, and let me tell you this. If we get one of the Republicans in that spot that's running, our schools will be gone. Because even if we flip some House seats, right now we've had the luxury of Governor Kelly vetoing some of those bad voucher bills as well as some other bills. But if we don't have a Democratic governor, the House and Senate will still be able to pass any of those voucher bills. And any of those Republican candidates that are running, they'll sign off on them. Their previous records for being in the legislature show they support vouchers. That's what's at stake. That and again, some other very critical, very bad bills we've been able to stop. And then we have the U.S. Senate race. What more can we say there? Democracy's hanging in the balance. So we have those races to think about. I will tell you, like Gina though, I am hopeful. And here's why. April 5th, that's when the first Hands Off rally started. On that day, I decided I wanted to get out and see what's going on. I went to 5 different rallies that day. The first one I showed up to was supposed to start at 9. I got there about 10 till 9. And I will tell you, there were already 50 people there gathering. And these were people I had never, ever seen before that are close to my area. I then went up to the Lenexa area where there was a rally going on. I was told it would be on one street corner at that intersection. There were so many people there, it was all 4 corners. 1,300 people showed up to protest that day. And then I went down to Parsons, Kansas. I was thinking maybe 20 or 30 people would be there. 120. People are showing up. And here's what else I will tell you. Since we've seen people showing up, we've noticed us stepping away a little bit. There is something that happens when you get out there. They realize you're watching. And here's something else I'll point to. The growth we've had in Johnson County. Again, when I first ran back in 2016, at that point, again, as a Democrat, when I got elected, there were 5 of us out of about 36. Now we have, I believe, 16. And that's just an 8-year period. So again, there are areas there out there where we can grow and we can flip those seats that we need to flip. And what I will tell you to do, and people keep asking me, what can I do in this time frame when things feel so horrible to push back and resist? There's a couple very practical things I'll tell you. 1, tell 2 today. And here's what I mean. When you're standing in line at the grocery store, you're out in your neighborhood neighborhood and you're walking the dog, tell a couple people about something you heard in the news. Because while all of you are engaged and active citizens, I guarantee you most people aren't. About a month ago, I mentioned to one of my neighbors the fact that RFK Jr. was talking about starting an autism registry. She looked at me and she said, "What? Are you kidding me?" I mean, that's the type of thing we all probably think everybody's heard about. But most people don't watch the news. Most people don't read a paper. You gotta make sure you're telling people these things. Please make sure you remind your friends, families, and neighbors about elections. I have a circle of friends that I've known since I first ran for office. They helped me, they supported me, and every year, whether I'm in an election or not, I will text them and say, "Hey, there's an election coming up, make sure you get out and vote." Invariably, half of them will respond and say something like, "Oh crap, when's the election?" Again, these are people who know me, who are involved. I bet you know people too, that it's just not on their radar. So then the follow-up question for my friends usually becomes, okay, where do I vote and who do I vote for? You can become that person that provides the information and provides the reminders. And here's what I'll tell you. We have 171 days until the 2026 election. You tell 2 people today and tomorrow and the next day, you're going to bring 342 voters with you. That breaks and busts a lot of margins out there. We can do that. I'm going to open up for questions for you all.